Hello and welcome to Awaken Empowered TV. I'm your host, Ethann Fox, and today I'm joined by Spirit Voyage recording artist, Jai-Jagdeesh. But before I get to her, I'd like to tell you a little about our upcoming Awaken Empowered Expo. It's going to be April 24th through 26th in Troy, Michigan in the United States. We have some incredible presenters and musicians, which we've talked about in previous events. Do check out our website, awakenempoweredexpo.com or aaeexpo.com. Or join us on our Facebook page as well, facebook.com, Awaken Empowered Expo. It's a fantastic 3-day event featuring a variety of presenters. We also have some musical experiences, gong immersions, yoga classes, qigong classes, and experts in a variety of different fields, including Dr. Sam Mazmanagich, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, who will be speaking about the Bosnian Pyramid Project. Mark Romero, he is a consciousness musician. Dixon's Violin, who will be doing a musical concert Friday night, followed by a 2-hour live interview, which I will personally do with all of the presenters who are available that evening, who will be on stage, and we'll be taking them through a live interview process about a variety of different questions, everything from consciousness to health, to give you a feel of the overall event. Now, that event is open to the general public, so if you'd like to come and just get a feel for the presenters and topics we have available that weekend, you can come for free. We also have exhibitor event Friday night, and all weekend long the exhibitor space is open free to the public, so I encourage you to come. You do not need to purchase a ticket for that. Just go to our website and print out the free exhibitor pass and bring it up to our registration table, and you'll be able to experience all of the events there. On Friday night, we do have raffles and a variety of giveaways in the exhibitor area as well. So do join us if you can. But let me tell you now about Jai-Jagdeesh. She'll be joining me in just one moment. Jai-Jagdeesh's journey as a singer began over 20 years ago in a temple in India, and the soundcurrent continued all through her childhood. While at school in Amritsar, she traveled around northern India as one of the musical representatives of Yogi Bhajan's foreign education program, playing kirtan everywhere the students were invited. Between then and now, her creative spirit has walked many artistic paths: actress, classical Indian dancer, photographer, and writer. And she says, "I find myself truly fulfilled now that music has returned to the forefront." In 2010, Jai-Jagdeesh joined the Spirit Voyage family of recording artists. Her debut album, I Am Thine, a combination of sacred mantras and powerful English lyrics, was released in the summer of 2011 to record sales and acclaim. She began touring across the globe and performing at Satnam Fest, delighting crowds with her soulful voice and deeply authentic style. She released her first meditation CD of Kundalini Mantra, The Expansive Spirit, as part of Spirit Voyage's Meditations for Transformation series in early 2012. Her second full-length studio album, Of Heaven and Earth, climbed up to number 6 on Billboard's New Age Music chart within the first few weeks of its release in the fall of 2013, and has been making waves on the airwaves around the world. Jai-Jagdeesh continues to record, perform, and express her heart's deepest creativity. She's completely devoted to sharing these sacred sounds and sings them from the center of her heart with humility, grace, and kindness. She brings a bit of dance and a lot of love to the world of kirtan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really both honored and excited to get to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I have I have a long list of questions for you today, but hopefully we can get through as many as we can. But first, I'd really like to, you've got an incredible life story and journey from growing up in India to your family's background in music and so on. And of course, everybody's, who's familiar with you has read your bio. But I'd really like to hear from your viewpoint what it was like to go on that journey and to grow up in India and the influences that you've had in your music as a result.
Okay, big deep breath, because this is going to be a long answer. No, I mean, to be relatively succinct, the experience of India is extraordinary. It's an amazing country to spend time in, whether a little or a nice chunk. And I got to spend 12 years there, back and forth. You know, our summers were spent in the States with family, and then the school year in different parts of northern India. And after I graduated, I went down to the south of India for a year to work and study dance. And every part of India that I went to taught me something different. And really, I think the thing that I experienced the most was going through being an adolescent while being there, going through the challenges of growing up and getting grounded and figuring out who I was, you know. And we're a long way from knowing who we truly are when we're 6 and 7 and 10 and 15, even 18. Even now at 33, I think I'm a ways away from knowing who I truly am. But growing up in India sort of brought a lot of things into very sharp focus. I've talked a little bit in the past in interviews or even just conversations with friends about the gratitude aspect, the perspective shift that comes from going back and forth between the States and India, and really recognizing just how extraordinary and how blessed our lives were, and how much we had to give and how much there was to give because of the resources that we had from where we were born and from the context in which we grew up. So I would say that probably the thing that shaped me the most was the way in which the culture of India and the context of India shifts perspective and helps open up a more direct channel to gratitude and to the realization that we're really here to serve. And I don't know if that comes anywhere close to answering the question that you asked, but that's sort of what it was like to grow up over there.
So were there any life-changing experiences that really either easy or profoundly positive that really redirected the course of your life? And I ask that because a lot of people have had that. I myself included have had experiences in my life that were both positive and even negative ones that really redirected the course of my life and brought me to doing the things that I'm doing now.
I have to say, things that are India specific, no, because it was sort of like every day shaped us in some way. It's sort of amazing to think about the life that I live now, which asks for a great deal of flexibility, a great deal of spontaneity, a great deal of sort of willing to just take a leap even when all the things aren't lined up. I like to refer to myself as a recovering Virgo because I'm a Virgo and I'll probably spend my whole life recovering from that. And I love for everything to be neatly organized, put in a row, all the ducks to be just so, all the eggs to be in one basket, you know, that sort of thing. Every phrase you can think of that describes order and organization, that's what I love. And so to live in this way that really requires wide open arms and total abandon and the ability to just say, okay, yes, we'll give that a try. And all right, that's next. And yeah, I'll hop on that plane and go to that event in that country that I know nothing about. And I'll take on this project. And, you know, I think we're all doing that to varying degrees. Each of us is being asked to step outside of our comfort zone in really important ways. But I have to say that the life that I lived growing up in India from day to day with every single challenge that was a part of that structure really taught me how to live the life that I'm living right now. It taught me how to be able to just ride the wave. And I'm not always excellent at riding the wave. I'm not always on that surfboard, but I do my best. And I think that the foundation came from all of the really button-pushing experiences of the way in which we lived when we were in India. On a bigger scale, I suppose it wasn't so much a specific experience that shaped my life completely, but the the choice to push yoga and meditation aside, well, hang on, let me give context. So I grew up in a yogic household, in a spiritual household. Yoga and meditation were a part of the school in India. It's just been a part of my life since day one, really, or since I was in the womb, actually. There was a lot of yogic nutrition and a lot of yogic practice that was done while my mother was pregnant. And so this has been just the I'm using this word constantly, but the context in which I've grown up. And when I turned 17 or 18, I can't remember, I looked at it all as I was graduating high school and I went, okay, that's enough of that. And I sort of stepped away feeling like I wanted to blend in with the rest of the world, feeling like I wanted to live a normal life, right? And I went on a sort of a journey that was, it was a spiritual journey, but it didn't feel particularly spiritual, stepping away from all of the spiritual practices, and then came face to face with my first real adult crisis and had that little voice in the back of my mind say, you have tools to deal with this. You should use them. And I paid attention. It took a while to really pay attention, but I paid attention and began to welcome those things in more and more. And the experience of, or the situation of welcoming yoga and meditation back into my life was really the major transformational experience of my life.
So what inspires your work today? Is it that original foundation, or why do you do what you do?
Oh, you're going straight into the big stuff, man. I love it. I have to say, I can't not do what I do. Like, honestly, I would love to curl up in a corner and eat bonbons all day and watch movies and have that be my entire life. That sounds like a whole lot of fun. But there's something that happens inside of me when I honor the creativity that's swimming in there, whether it's musical or dance or photography or creative writing or any other of the other ways in which I've realized I have an interest in being creative. Anytime I honor something there, it connects me more to myself. And when I feel more connected to myself, I feel more grounded. I feel more able to do the things that are a part of having this career. You know, administration is challenging. Doing all of the things that are behind the scenes to create something or to go on a tour or to, to lead a global sadhana that Spirit Voyage does. There's so much that goes into that, and there's a really incredible team in place, both mine and Spirit Voyage's, that helps support it all. But we still, even as artists, have responsibilities. And sometimes, man, I would much rather put up my feet than do any of that. But I feel so fulfilled by the creative process and feel so excited about what I create that I really want to share it. And it doesn't get shared if my feet are up and I'm popping bonbons. That happens in between to help balance everything out. I think my big lesson in this life is balance. But I am motivated to do what I do because I feel so excited about what gets created when I really invest as a creative being. And I have to say that now, with certain things that I have been a part of creating, having made their way out pretty far into the world, I hear from people who've had experiences in conjunction with this music or in a Kundalini yoga class or in somebody else's class where they talked about something that I had said or done or taught or some music that I had made. They'll get in touch with me and they'll share something that was transformational for them. And I'll be reminded of the many, 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 many reasons, above and beyond my own reasons, why I do this and why we create these things. Because honestly, everything we create is to serve each other. And it's kind of amazing to have the feedback loop in which somebody says to me, your song With You is something that my best friend, who has been sick for a long time and recently passed away, decided to have played at her memorial service. And it comforted me and it comforted her family, and we're grateful. And I usually have to stop and take a big deep breath. And well, I'm honored to know that. I'm honored to be a part of that. But it also helps sharpen my focus and remind me that this is why I do what I do.
Now you have quite a musical family, right? They were really influential in your beginning, and I think your father is still involved with you, is he not?
He is, yeah. We don't go on the road together all the time. He's pretty busy here in Virginia, both as a yoga teacher and a teacher trainer. And he's a part of a band with a beloved friend of mine, an honorary uncle named Guru Ganesha Singh, who was Sanatan Kaur's touring accompaniment for a long time. And they've made a lot of music together. And he's a superstar in his own right, truth be told. You should hear some of his music. It's just, it's so good. But they travel together a lot. They present music together a lot. They teach together sometimes. And so every so often, my father comes on the road with me, or when I'll pass through Virginia, which is where my family lives, we'll do an event here together. And it's really, really very sweet. He plays the guitar and he sings, and he seems to know exactly where I'm going to go vocally. Like, I often don't have accompaniment vocalists when I do things live, because what I love to do is sort of go out in search of the present moment sound current. And yes, we have an arrangement for the song. Yes, we have a sort of a framework based on what we've done before. But then I love to just see what belongs in this moment. And that means that I hit flats and sharps while I go in search of whatever sound lives in the here and now. But I've made peace with that. My Virgo self has made peace with that, you know, perfectly imperfect, right? And so I usually like to do that unaccompanied so that I can have total freedom. But I have to admit that I can still do that to a large degree, even when my father is my accompaniment vocalist, because he just knows. He has a way of recognizing where I'm going to go and either following me and we see where it takes us, or he steps back a little bit and lets me do my thing, and then we come back together for some piece that has repetition. And you know, mantra music, there's a great deal of repetition in it, and it's got this vibration of being an affirmation, which is very cool, which is one of the things that I think many people respond to. But yeah, that's my very long-winded way of saying my parents and I work together sometimes. Actually, my mother has the sweetest voice, and she joined my father and Guru Ganesha and I not too long ago at a concert we did in Maryland. And it was really lovely to get to spend that time with all of them. Yeah. She was my harmonium teacher. I don't ever remember learning the harmonium, but I learned it somehow. And I know that we spent some time playing music together when I was a small child.
So you learned that very young, did you not?
I did, yeah. I mean, in this lifestyle, music is a part of everything. Mantra, sound current, is a huge part, not only of the practice, but of the daily everything. I'm going to start a blog called The Daily Everything. Now, sound current, the vibration that is a part of Kundalini yoga, is so therapeutic in so many ways, on so many levels, and for so many purposes. Like, anytime I get stuck in my life, anytime I get caught up in some thought pattern or self-limiting belief, usually if I just spend a little bit of time listening to or chanting out loud or mentally some sound current, it helps to flip the switch out of whatever pattern I was stuck in, out of whatever belief I was stuck in, and opens things up. Anytime I feel totally overwhelmed, big deep breath and some mantra just vibrates inside of me, and it helps. the breath is, I think, the key. But sound current it's a tool, it's a remedy for everything. I do a series of meditations every day, and my mother jokingly refers to them as my meds, because that's what it's like. It's like medication. Meditation for me is medication, and it helps to settle and solve and heal so many different things.
So, so the harmonium has been with you for a long time. What has, and I've watched you play it on videos, and it seems like it's really a personal instrument, something very close to you. So, what is your experience of that?
Well, that's a pretty good question. The sound of the harmonium to me is very grounded, and every harmonium sounds quite different. Actually, for anyone out there who might be thinking about purchasing a harmonium, I wouldn't recommend buying one without having heard it in person, or at least heard it maybe over the phone, because each one carries a different sound current, and each one has a different tone and texture to it, because it's a reed instrument, 2 and 3 and 4 reeds. I prefer the 2 reed instrument, which is just a very root sound. And for me, it's very grounding. And I think that I'd probably get very lost out there in space while I sang if I didn't have the grounded presence of the harmonium. It's like my anchor. And I'm not a fancy instrumentalist. I can't do any of the amazing things that some really extraordinary harmonium players can do. But I play chord progressions on it to hold space within music. And then I like to travel with a melodic instrumentalist who's sometimes a sitar, sometimes a violin, sometimes a cello, and a percussionist. I know a couple of really extraordinary percussionists who can hold a groove and create complex rhythmic patterns. And those 3 things, the harmonium plus a great melody plus a really fantastic percussion sound, that's my jam. I love that.
Has it been a challenge being such a young musician, starting out at such a young age and being in Hollywood and so on?
I was never a musician in Hollywood, I should say. I was barely even anything in Hollywood. I moved to Los Angeles in my mid-20s because I was certain that I was destined for Hollywood movie stardom. And what it was that I, for starters, have an aptitude for that type of performance, and I had studied it a little bit in college, and I began to do theater professionally in Washington, D.C., and all signs pointed to, hey, this is your life. And that was the moment in time when I'd put aside yoga, meditation, music, mantra, sound current, everything. That was just a part of my childhood that was being left in my childhood. And this seemed to be the path that I was headed on, and the thing that was going to create and shape my future. So I headed out to LA with probably the same dream that everybody shows up with. And I learned over the course of my couple years there, well, no, I was there for 7 years, but it was in the first few years that I was pursuing an acting career. And I learned that I didn't love the craft of acting. I was really only putting myself on a stage because I wanted to be seen and heard by other people. Really, the switch flipped when I started practicing yoga and meditation, because suddenly I saw myself and I heard myself, and I was really honoring the voices that were moving within me. And I recognized that I didn't feel the need to get that from anyone else anymore. And now I should add to that, I think there are people out there who love the craft of acting and who want to inhabit these roles and tell these stories and share just really incredible work on a global stage, which film allows you to do. And I want them to have the acting careers. I want to watch them create a role while I pop my bonbons and put my feet up on the coffee table. I just realized that that wasn't me, and that I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Again, not because I loved the craft, but because I needed some sort of validation from other people. And then I validated myself and I honored myself and recognized that there were other things swimming around me that wanted to be expressed. And it all happened rather quickly, to be honest. I started sitting down to a harmonium once again, and was playing other people's music, as I had all through childhood. And then all of a sudden one day I had written my own music, and it was astonishing, and I was so excited, but I wasn't going to share it with anybody. And then one day I decided to share it with someone, and they were really moved by it and said, well, what else have you got? And you should play this more often. And so I started writing more, and I reached out to a good friend of mine who's a music producer. And I said, by any chance, could you record these things for me? I cannot pay you anything. I can give you hugs and I will make you food. But I think there's something special here, and I'd like to create recorded files, and I'd like to share them. And he listened to it, and he was really, really interested. He was very moved. I was deciding whether or not to say this, but I will. He was in tears by the second piece that I was sharing with him, which is how we both knew that something really special was happening. And he's a childhood friend of mine, and I know he would have done it for me as a favor, but this was something bigger than I think both of us thought it was when I first pitched it and when he first said maybe. So we started working together, and then the folks at Spirit Voyage reached out and said, hey, if you'd like to be a part of the Spirit Voyage family, if you want to make an album, we want to be involved. And really it was because I had started writing the music and then started sharing it, and then stepped way outside of my comfort zone and said, hey, can you maybe help me make this happen? And just one foot in front of the other, no matter how much it freaked me out. We got to the point of having the support of Spirit Voyage. And that was very few years ago. I started recording in 2010. First album came out in 2011. And it's amazing to me how much has happened in such a short time. And that bigness, that quick movement is what's been overwhelming. I'm really excited to be able to travel around the world and share the music that we've written, share music that I'm inspired by that other people have written, and connect with communities everywhere, and get to know the cultures all over the place. Like it's humbling to have this be my life. And at the same time, in between those adventures, I'm totally terrified. I'd love to present a lovely picture of composure and everything being easy and effortless, but it's real work to show up for the day-to-day parts of this career, and it's real work to sign on for things that feel huge, so much bigger than me, or so much bigger than I ever had any plan or intention to envision for myself. And all I can do is say thank you and do my best to keep up and honor all the people that I work with. And sometimes I'll fall short, but I'm doing my best.
So do you, and I think you've already answered this question, but I want to ask it straight. So do you really feel like you're following your life mission, your life's purpose? Is this the truest path to who you believe you are at this moment?
I'm so glad you ended that question with "at this moment," because I was about to say, in this moment, yes. I can't predict how I'm going to feel in 20 years in the same way that 15 years ago, I never would have imagined this. You know, I was sure that I was going to be somewhere very different at this particular age when I was, I don't know, 15, 16, 18. So in this moment, this feels very authentic, very real, very right, very much a part of my DNA and my destiny and what I'm here to do, the way in which I'm here to serve. But 5 years from now, I might be writing books, or I might be doing things I've never tried before. It's so hard to say, because it's been shown to me that I have absolutely no clue in any given moment what the next decade holds. So I feel very fulfilled by what I do, and I feel very excited about what comes next. The moment that I don't feel excited about what's coming up in the next chapter is the moment I'll know I need to sit down and go in search, do some digging, do some excavation, see where I need to recalibrate to, and where the expression now is, or is then. How do you do that in grammar? Let's just pretend that I did that really well grammatically. I don't know. But I hope to always have the presence of mind to recognize that I have the tools to go in search whenever I don't know.
Well, the reason I ask that is because of the work that I do and a lot of the people I'm around. One of the most common things I hear from people is that they found themselves at a point in their life where they're following a path that was either what their parents told them they should do or society told them they should do, and they don't find that they're very fulfilled or following their true inner calling. And a lot of people don't even know what that inner calling is. So I'm trying to, so what I would really like to hear from you is any advice or guidance that you can offer to people who are maybe standing on the edge there, who may not really know where to go from here, but they know that what they're doing now isn't really feeding their soul.
I have the best advice in the world, honestly. Throw spaghetti at the wall. And what I mean by that is try everything and see what sticks. Because honestly, we have no idea what we're capable of until the first time we give it a try. And really, even more than that, we have no idea how good we might be at something until we walk down that path a little bit. So I was just in Malaysia, and this really sweet young girl came up to me. She couldn't have been any more than 15. And she said, I have a sort of a dumb question for you. And I said, okay, bring it on. Because honestly, there is no such thing as a stupid question, because you never know what you're going to unearth with that question that sounds foolish inside of your mind. So she says to me, how do I get more in touch with who I am? And I was like, that's your version of a stupid question? Oh my God. I wish everyone was asking this question. And that's what I told her. I said, have you ever heard this analogy? She said, no. I said, all right, so when you boil spaghetti, you can take a strand out and you throw it at the wall, and if it falls off, it's not ready yet. And if it sticks, it's cooked. So keep reaching for things that you've never tried before and throw it up at the wall and see how you feel. See if it sticks. See if it spins something inside of you, fires up your creativity, gives you more energy than you had before. If suddenly your heart feels more open, if your synapses are firing more or in a more exciting way. I mean, just anything that shifts something inside of us is something we should be doing more of. So I advised her to do a lot of throwing spaghetti, and I made sure that she wasn't going to take me literally. I gave lots of examples. And I would say for anyone who's never been creative before in their life and doesn't feel fulfilled, I'd say start with creativity. For anyone who is creative and doesn't feel fulfilled, I'd say try something that's in a totally different modality than creativity. Try something that has analysis and a scientific quality to it, because you just don't know what's there until you pull at that thread. And I'm noticing, I think we all have a different explanation for this, but I'm noticing that there are fewer and fewer jobs available in the marketplace these days. People talk about unemployment and they see it as a giant crisis. And I feel I feel a sense of understanding that when there are less jobs in the marketplace, there are fewer people with gainful employment to support themselves and their families. And so I understand why it's seen as a crisis. But at the same time, I think that what's happening on a global scale, and really in a very deep spiritual way, is that there are no longer these opportunities for people to get stuck in dead-end places. There are no longer those jobs where you can just get it and then sit in it for 20 years without feeling fulfilled. Now we're not being given those cozy little corners to get stuck or lost in, and instead we're being presented with the void, which is terrifying. I totally understand. I stand in front of the void every day. And so believe me when I say I'm not trying to push you, not you, Ethan, but anyone off of a cliff into the void. I'm just saying there's a reason that dead-end job doesn't exist anymore. The universe is no longer content to let us just spin our wheels. We all have a really important purpose. On a global scale, we all have something to do that's going to serve humanity. And it's really important for us to have the space, have that vacuum in which we can go in search of it, discover it, and then start working on it. Because again, if you're stuck somewhere, you're not doing the work that your soul is asking you to do. And I'm sure there are going to be tons of people who disagree with this, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree, and I still love you. So there.
Very good. Very good advice.
Yeah.
So you travel a lot. Where have you been in, say, the last 6 months or a year? Some of the interesting places.
Oh, it's been good. Believe me, I recognize how lucky I am to get to travel for my job, my career, my livelihood, because I know a lot of people want to go out on this type of adventure, and so I don't say any of this lightly, but I do say it with a lot of excitement. In the past 6 months, I have been to France and Spain, Germany, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, well, specifically England, Austria, which was lovely. Salzburg is beautiful. I'm sure I've totally mispronounced that, but it's lovely there. The hills are alive with the sound of music. And they were before I arrived. Belgium, the Netherlands, and then most recently I was in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and India. Yeah. I spent a little bit of time in each of those places in February. And last year through the summer and then lots of touring in September was the big European chapter. And it's exciting. It's really special to get to see all of these places and to get to offer music or teach yoga or teach about the authentic voice, which is a journey that I've certainly been on in all of those places. It's very special.
So tell me about the authentic voice a little bit. That's a class that it sounds like it's very unique to you. Is that something that you developed, or is it something that you were taught and that now you teach? As much as you can tell me about that.
Well, it is something that I developed, but I don't think that I'm the only one who's ever worked on an authentic voice course. It's just I developed it using the tools that I personally lean on in order to make sure I'm expressing myself in an authentic way. A lot of the places that I go, and it's happening more and more frequently now, people come up to me and they say, it was really fun singing with you. I don't typically sing because I can't sing. Or, I'll present music and I'll encourage people to sing along, and sometimes they will, even if they don't necessarily feel comfortable with their singing voice. And they'll come up to me afterwards and say, yeah, thanks for encouraging that, but I don't sing because I can't sing. And usually this means that maybe in their childhood or at some point during their life, somebody said to them, you shouldn't sing, either because that person had an opinion about their voice, or or that person had a block of their own that they were taking out on someone else. And I think it's really unfortunate because we all have a sound that we are here to offer, to create. And the most healing sound that you'll ever hear is your own voice. The most healing sound I'll ever hear is my own voice. And there's a vibration that happens in the body when we create sound, whether it's spoken or sung. Put your hand on your chest, put it on your stomach, and you feel the vibration as you speak. That's important. That's something that is, I mean, we weren't given the voice so that we would not use it. There's a great Zimbabwean proverb: if you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing. And I recognize that in the spheres of music, we've decided that something in particular sounds best. And we've decided that this is the scale that you follow, and these are the harmonies that match really well. And there's something that's pleasing to the ear about what has been brought into all the different genres of music. But that doesn't mean that everything else isn't valuable as well. And it doesn't mean that anybody who doesn't match in those ways should be quiet. So that's one aspect of the authentic voice, making sure that everybody recognizes that they have a sound current to offer and that their sound is very healing to them. But also, when I was a child, the way in which I sang is not how I sing now. And that's largely because over the course of about 10 years, when I just wasn't focusing at all on music, something was percolating. And I was coming to understand that there were sounds that I wanted to make that were different than what I had grown up hearing. And something in my mind said that maybe they weren't right because they were different. And so I just wasn't singing. I was really nice and quiet. And I was certainly not using my navel point, which is where we project from, that third chakra, that belly button, all that fire in the belly. That's how we send out who we are, through the heart, through the throat. That's how we communicate really with intention and with clarity. And I was just sort of shrinking a little bit and not honoring the way in which I wanted to make sound. And I'll never forget, I was at a summer solstice. We have these solstice celebrations up in the mountains in New Mexico, in Espanola. And I was at a summer solstice, and my dear friend, she wasn't my friend then, we hadn't yet met, but my dear friend Simrit was doing some music in an all-night program during the summer solstice week of yoga and music and celebration, really. And I heard her make sounds that were similar to some of what was swimming around in my head. And I honestly felt like in a split second, she had given me permission to totally be myself. I heard her being authentic, and I went, oh, okay. I can do what I feel compelled to do. I can make sound in the way I feel compelled to make sound. And something very different than what I'd heard, again, in my community, in this genre, started coming out. And it's not, a reinvention of the wheel. It's sort of got a bluesy, jazzy vibe. It's earthy, it's grounded. Lots of people have been creating sounds like this before, but it was really important to me to sink into that authenticity and to be making music from that space, because honestly, I think that's the only reason any of my music actually has an impact on anyone, is because it's authentic. I have a nice voice. Yeah, it's not the best voice I've ever heard in the whole world. It's not the most technically skilled, but I care a lot about what I'm singing, whether it's lyrics that I've written myself or ancient sound current from these incredible practices and traditions. I really care, and I think that authenticity is what speaks to people more than anything. You listen to Simrit's music, and particularly her most recent album, which is self-titled. that it just lands in your heart because it's so authentic. It's so who she is, this eclectic, poppy, amazing vibe. And yeah, I want other people to have the same experience that I've had of really honoring their sound, their voice, who they are as people who speak or sing or both. And I love doing that work, and I utilize the meditations of Kundalini yoga in order to help free up some stuff, clear out some stuff, open some stuff, and we have a good time.
Now, a lot of people who are watching this show may not necessarily know that much about Kundalini yoga. You've been teaching since you were, what, a teenager, right? Or
No,
pretty
I
young?
wish I could say that, but honestly, when I was a teenager, I sort of looked at it with not so much with disdain, but I was like, yeah, I'm over it. So I learned it all through childhood and as a teenager. And then when I heard that little voice say, you've got these tools, you should use them, and I started pulling the practices back into my life, one of the first things that happened was this little light bulb went off that said, I want to be a teacher. So I went into teacher training, and I learned a lot of things that I had known in childhood, but when you're invested in something, you hear it all differently. You receive the information, you assimilate it. I cared so much about learning how to be a Kundalini yoga teacher that I devoured everything. I read all of the books cover to cover. I read great lectures by Yogi Bhajan, who brought this particular yoga to the West. I dove head first into it so that I could share it with people and really know what I was talking about. So not since I was a teenager, but in the past 10 years, there's been a lot of opening and connection so that I could be the teacher that I am today.
So what exactly is Kundalini yoga, and how does it differ from other forms of yoga, and what are some of the benefits you've noticed for yourself and maybe your students have reported as well?
Okay. This is a subject I really love. You've chosen some great questions because honestly, I'm excited about everything that you've asked me about thus far, but I really dig talking about this because it's something that has completely transformed my life and helped me to step into the void and helped me to just be open to the possibilities. So I always love the opportunity to talk about it a little bit so that other people can know that it's a resource and a tool for them as well. Succinctly as possible, Kundalini yoga is referred to as the yoga of awareness and also as a householder's yoga. And what I mean by the householder's yoga, Yogi Bhajan talked about it being maximum benefit in minimum time because we have very full lives as human beings. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and in the human experience, we have careers and we have spouses and kids and big busy families. And if you think about the way that technology has moved us now, oftentimes we have 15 to 300 people to be in touch with in any given day. And there's so much that has to happen in order for us to put one foot in front of the other in the living of this human experience. And so Yogi Bhajan offered this householder's yoga that allowed us to go in, go deep, get clear, get focused, and then step out to live the rest of the day. He talked about giving a 10th of your day to your soul with a practice such as this, but it could be any practice, truly, but that 10th of the day, so about 2.5 hours, if you do the math on it, and then letting the divine take care of the rest of the day for you because you've shown up for that commitment to your soul. And really, Kundalini yoga as a daily practice is a recalibration. It sort of clicks you back into who you are so that everything that happens in the day, I don't dare make any promises, but as much as possible, everything that happens in the day is as much in alignment with you as it can be, and it's coming from an authentic place, and you're in the neutral mind more than you are the positive, everything is sunny and rosy mind, or the negative, everything is crappy and awful mind. We're working from the meditative mind to create our lives. And he used to say that Kundalini yoga was like giving the mind a bath, giving the mind a shower. And he'd say to people, listen, you have like a big high-powered job in, let's say, corporate America. Would you walk out the door in the morning without having showered and put on nice clothes and created the projection that will match going out into that world? And if the answer is no, well, then why would you go out into the world without having gone in to give that same gift to your mind so that it is balanced and clean and clear and ready to take on whatever the challenges of the day are? So this is something that is, again, maximum benefit, minimum time. And I don't mean that to say it's not effortless, it's not simple. There's a lot of digging that's involved, and it can get very emotional because we have deep stuff to go through. You know, there's grief and there's sadness and there's loss and there's disappointment. There's every conceivable human emotion. And this practice helps us to meet that with ourselves and go through it and come out the other side having had a profound experience of growth and of learning and of recognition, seeing ourselves and allowing ourselves to be seen by other people. It clears the debris and makes it possible for us to show up in our lives as ourselves. So it's a big promise, but honestly, I think that each of us is attuned to something different, some different practice. So for me, Kundalini yoga is my practice. For you, it might be something completely different. For a bunch of people who are watching or listening, it might be something completely different. But the important thing is for us to sink into a spiritual practice. And if you haven't yet found yours, to try different things to see which is resonant for you. That's what makes it possible to step out, open up.
So what are the most important influences in your life? Obviously, Kundalini Yoga is one of them that you find balances and centers and keeps you happy in your day-to-day life.
It's a short list, but each thing is sort of giant unto itself. So you mentioned Kundalini Yoga. That's a part of every day because honestly, I can't imagine being a fully functional human being without it. I'm pretty sure that I would be a little bit obsessive compulsive if I didn't have that to lean on and to help knock me out of the spinning analytical mind or I tend to be up in my head often. And so anything that gets me to sink down into my heart is a good thing. And these practices help to do that. Going outside, being in nature, even if I can't get into total wilderness, even if I can't get to the ocean, which happens to be my biggest touchstone, being outside and breathing the air, that's something that sinks me very quickly into my body and makes it easier for me to move from my head into my heart. Or rather, I should say, find balance between the head and heart, because we need everything that's going on in here. Being creative is a big deal for me. Anytime I have a huge amount of the desk work, the detail-oriented administrative pieces, if I am able to sink into a creative space and make something or sit down to the harmonium and sing a little bit or write, sometimes just pulling out a journal and writing for a while. If I'm able to do those things, that makes all of the work infinitely more palatable, I should say, infinitely more possible. And that helps to loosen me up. And my family, They're good people. We push each other's buttons because that's what families are there for. And we help each other to grow, and we honor each other as best we can. But yeah, having them to lean on and being supported by them makes a really big difference in my life and world. And I think the last one on the list would be making conscious communication a priority, because with so much of life nowadays, it's all our word, it's all what we say, it's all, well, if you think about just, for example, social media, social networking, whatever you say is out there for any and everyone you're connected to. And it's really important for what we say to reflect who we are. And in my particular line of work, I send a lot of emails every day. There's a lot of correspondence. And sometimes we hit a snag in some way and need to work through something. And pausing to do that, pausing to go through the process of honoring one another in the communication process is so, so important to me. Yogi Bhajan talked about 4 steps within conscious communication. And I think he was largely referring to whenever there's complication in communication, and it's poke, provoke, confront, elevate. And he said, if you can't get to the elevation step, don't do the first 3. So always our goal is to get to a space where we are lifting one another, we are helping to open one another. And so I really strive to make that something that is a part of all of my days, because if it's not, something feels heavy or stuck. And bringing it into focus and into my day-to-day movements and rhythms is something that definitely keeps me open.
Tell me about those 4 steps in a little bit more detail. That sounds very interesting.
Well, I haven't mastered it, so I cannot speak to the ideal poke, provoke, confront, elevate. But if we're stuck in some way, well, hang on, let me back up a little bit. I remember hearing someone, a teacher in this community, say once that the slanderer takes on the karma of the slandered. So it's not only that it's important for us to show up with one another, honoring one another in communication, but also when we come into a group communication where something needs to be worked out, it's important to not to point fingers, place blame, say, oh, but he or she, and this is... It's so important for us to be honorable in the process of going through those steps, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting, because your word is your essence. And everything gets held by the cosmos. And I don't know about you, but I really want to feel great about everything that I've said and not said at the end of any given day. And sometimes we get angry and we say things that we kind of wish we could take back. But if foundationally underneath is always the intention to communicate consciously, then the first thing that gets addressed when everybody's grounded is going to be the thing that was said in the heat of the moment, rather than just letting it be okay that that was said. Things get looked at. But I digress, as I often do. In the steps of conscious communication, the poke refers to going into the center of the thing. So going straight to the heart of the matter, whatever that is. And if there's a complicated situation between 2 people, it doesn't really serve anybody if you dance around it and then eventually arrive at it 13 years later. How about if it's poked at right now and done with as much neutrality and as much groundedness and as much compassion as possible? Because if we remember that we're all going through a great challenge, because we really all are, then it helps us to stay grounded when we're communicating with someone with whom we may be upset or in whom we may be disappointed. Because we recognize that they're having compassion for us, we're having compassion for them, because the journey is hard. So poking with as much neutrality as possible, provoking, because sometimes, my God, I wish I could be more succinct. Just in general in life, I use probably 300 words where somebody else might manage to use 45. So you'll have to forgive me as I go in search of everything that is here to be shared. The provoking is, it's a step that makes sure that we don't ignore our responsibility to ask the other person to show up in the communication. So I may poke at something, going right into the heart of the matter, and the other person may back off and say, well, hang on, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant, that's not where I was coming from, you've got it all wrong. And it's important for both people to show up willing to take responsibility and willing to sort of dig into the heart of the matter so that it can be excavated and ultimately uplifted. And so if one person backs off, that may require the provoke, saying, hang on a second, let us dive a little deeper into this. I wish I could just give you an example so that I could go through the layers with you. But honestly, any and every conscious communication I've had that's gone through these steps, I feel is quite personal and private. And so I wouldn't want to bring all of that for my own sake and for the sake of the people with whom I communicate. I wouldn't want to bring it all to the surface and say, so here's this. I can't even be hypothetical, or I can't pretend to give an example that doesn't exist, because I'm not imaginative in that way. So poke, provoke, confront is usually the step where you have to call somebody out on their BS a little bit, or they may be calling you out on yours. And they're all different aspects of the same push that has to happen in conscious communication in order to open up the thing that has gotten clenched and stuck and perhaps buried. There's a lot of honor in the process. There's a lot of giving people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, especially nowadays, we communicate a lot by email. And so it's not a real time going back and forth and people responding to something that you've just said. Sometimes you have to lay out your whole case, and then somebody comes back to you with their response. And those two things would have been much shorter and much more concise had something been face-to-face, because you just respond in the moment and have an exchange. So the poke, provoke, confront are all similar aspects of the same equation of digging, 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 getting to the root of it, and then finding a way to completely uplift and transform the situation. Finding a way to have everyone come away feeling okay. You know, maybe not everyone's going to feel completely excited, because maybe it's a situation of somebody has done something that cannot be undone, and you're frustrated by it, and you're trying to express your frustration, and you're trying to help them understand where you're coming from, and they're a bit defensive. And then maybe because you've communicated really well, they start to see how what they said or did may have been detrimental. And I think in that situation, oh, look at me being imaginative, hypothetically. I think in that situation, you would want to come to a place with the other person where you're not saying, hey, you are completely at blame, or to blame for this, completely at fault for this. You are the one who caused this big problem. I think at the end of the day, when people claim responsibility, it changes the dynamic, and then that allows you to say to the person something like, perhaps, I understand that things like this happen, and they may happen in the future because they've happened in the past. And I'm really grateful that we were able to have this exchange, have this communication, because now You understand why it was a challenge for me, and I understand how it accidentally happened for you. And now, hopefully, you recognize that this would be a challenge for me in the future. So if we could talk a little bit more anytime you plan to do X, Y, or Z, that would be really helpful for me. And again, I really appreciate the time you've taken for us to have this exchange. I mean, again, it's all about honoring each other and honoring the journey that we're on, and the fact that nobody ever does anything deliberately. It's not malicious. There's not an intention to hurt one another or to embarrass one another or to disappoint one another. It's all just us moving through time and space and occasionally making a huge mistake and maybe recognizing that mistake, maybe not. And then somebody calls us to task for it and we go, oh, wait, but I didn't do it. You know, it's a journey. So this is a really poor explanation and it was not at all concise, but conscious communication is a practice, and I think it's one that could and should be implemented in any business scenario to help make sure that everybody really understands at the end of a communication what happened, what needs to be done to help remedy it, if anything, and how to proceed. Because if that doesn't happen, what was the point of the communication in the first place? You know, you showing up and pointing the finger at someone, or me showing up and pointing the finger at someone, it's the proverbial you, doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't help anybody learn any lessons. But everybody digging in together and getting their hands dirty together and calling each other out on their BS, that serves, that supports. So yeah, that's something I try to do.
So have you ever had somebody who was very confrontational, who you could not make that process work, and how did you deal with that?
That's a very good question, and it's a very personal question. I'm trying to decide. Without going into too much detail, I will say that I recently approached a complicated situation with as conscious and uplifting a communication as I could. And what came back was a message that was filled with things that were not true, accusations that can be disproven. You know, there's plenty of correspondence evidence that has been accumulated that can be shown to say, listen, what you've just said is actually not what you said before. It doesn't always work because sometimes people are stuck in spaces they don't want to get unstuck from, or not able or willing to take any responsibility for what they've said, what they've done, the choice they've made that has impacted you or, let's say, another party negatively. All we can do is hold space for one another. I'm still holding space for the possibility that that communication will yield something really, really beautiful. For the moment when I received the email that was this person's next step in the process, I found myself trembling. My nervous system was so alarmed by the things that were said, and it was hard, but it's very, very, it's the exception to the rule for that to happen, because I think we're finding ourselves in the company of really extraordinary people who are working on themselves in the same way that we are, and everybody is able and willing to step up to the plate and say, all right, this is my life and I'm going to take responsibility for it. And those were my actions and I'm going to take responsibility for them. And these were my words and I'm going to take responsibility for them. That's a big deal. You know what? This is actually reminding me of something I meant to say a couple questions ago when you asked me what my advice would be to people who are feeling unfulfilled and stuck. Find your tribe. Find the people who speak language in the way that you speak language. Find the people who have life rhythms that are yours. Find the people whom you understand without having known them for all that long. Find your family that is more than just your biological family. If you're really lucky in this life, your biological family will be a part of your tribe. That doesn't always turn out to be the case, but sometimes it's a total blessing, and you've got that foundation right from the start. But there's something to be said for being surrounded by people with whom you're on the same frequency. And there's something to be said for what that opens up within you. I know it's opened up a lot of things within me to be in the center of a tribe of people with whom I feel heard, and whom I hear and understand, and I don't know, can totally be authentic with. That's really important. And so what I think I was alluding to in talking about the communication is that oftentimes you'll be in a tribe that communicates in the way that you do, and more often than not, everybody's willing and able to show up for it because they're doing the work as well.
So tell me about Yogi Bhajan. It sounds like he's had a huge influence on your life. What can you tell me about him?
Well, complicated dude. Controversial as well, because there are many people, largely in different communities in India, who aren't particularly thrilled about the fact that the practice of Kundalini yoga uses the sound current of Sikhism. There are many in the Sikh faith in India who feel that this yoga and that sound current do not go together because they see yoga as a Hindu tradition. And then there are many in the Hindu tradition who feel that this yoga was taken and we're using the wrong sound currents for it. I think that for all of the controversial stuff that may exist, the proof is in the really, really happy, healthy, radiant people who practice this technology. The proof is in the fact that I am a sane human being because I practice this technology. I think that the language of spirituality is changing, and it's happening at a really rapid pace in the same way that everything is happening at a really rapid pace. And I think that we as people will find that resonates, and that resonates, and that resonates, and that resonates, but they're not all from the same tradition and discipline. There's so many different things that have been taught the whole world over, and I don't think it's wrong to feel that there is one tradition and one discipline that is yours, and that is the thing that moves you and inspires you and holds your faith and supports you through all the challenges of life. Not at all. If that happens to be the case, congratulations, you're in the minority. But for me, I mean, I read the poetry of Rabia and Rumi and my heart just fills up. And I read some of the poetry of Kabir and of Guru Ram Das, and my heart fills up. And I listen to things that the Dalai Lama has to say, and my heart fills up. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with finding that which fills your heart and letting that be the thing that carries you through. And so Yogi Bhajan taught Kundalini yoga. He happened to be a Sikh. He recognized how extraordinarily these two things merge. And in fact, there's so much in the history of Sikhism that, and I do not know every single detail, so I won't even begin to talk about it, but there's so much in the history of Sikhism that talks about all of them being yogis, and yoga, the practice of meditating on the sound current, all of those things being tools for expansion and connection. And so it wasn't just Yogi Bhajan's idea. It was the the eventual, inevitable sharing of these two things, this incredible sound current and this technology that relies heavily on sound current. And now there are all these people the world over who breathe a little more deeply and whose shoulders relax a little bit more and whose hearts are a little bit more full and whose lives are a little bit easier, a little bit more graceful, because Kundalini yoga with that extraordinary sound current has been a part of their life.
Having traveled all over the world, you've obviously been exposed to a lot of different cultures and so on. I think, especially being in America, we're somewhat isolated from a lot of people in the world. And we get this very limited view, I think, of what other people are like. And we have very specific preconceived notions of what other cultures are like and what other people are like. And I'm curious, from your travels and your experience with other people, what have you found are the similarities between different cultures and Americans and or even westernized societies in general? And what are the similarities and differences that you've observed?
The longing to belong is the same everywhere. Everybody wants to feel like they're here for a reason and like they're surrounded by that tribe that's really going to support them through the work, through the muck. You know, no mud, no lotus. We want to go after the creation of this beautiful thing in our lives, or this beautiful life in general. But it requires going through some heavy stuff. And so people want to be encircled by like-minded and similar spirited and open-hearted folks who are going to really be a part of supporting their ability to do what they're here to do. Everybody wants to be more open than they already are. That's like a big recurring theme. They come and say, I feel stuck in this way and I'd like to open it up, and I feel frustrated with this situation. Pretty much every adolescent who's approached me and decided to share something with me in confidence has talked about how heavy adolescence is at this moment in time. And they've not used those words because I think they're figuring out how to articulate what they feel. But very specifically in Malaysia, I think it was 4 different young teenage girls came to me, and they'd ask me a question, and midway through the question, their eyes would fill with tears because they're totally overwhelmed and totally inundated. I think the overwhelm is a thing everywhere. I was having a conversation with a musician the other day. I was apologizing to her for calling her back a day later than I had intended to. And she said, oh my God, no, I totally understand. I think we're all falling a bit short these days. And that's very well put. I think we all have pretty high expectations of one another. And we all recognize how challenging it is for us to show up for each other's expectations. And so we're all apologizing as like the beginning of an email or the beginning of a phone call. We're saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry it's taken me so long, when maybe it's been 24 hours. We're all feeling the pressure, the real, inescapable pressure. And I was remarking, I know I've said it to friends, and I might have written about it in a post on my band page at some point in time, but I was remarking that I feel like life is a bit of a bullet train now, not just for me, but for everybody, in that, the speed is almost sometimes too much to contend with, but it's not going to slow down. Even if we consciously slow everything down, life is still moving at that speed. And if we decide to be a part of life, we're going to move at that speed as well. So it's about having tools that help us to stay grounded in spite of the speed, in spite of the movement. And it's also sort of recognizing that we no longer have chapters that are really, really easy and lovely and pleasant, and then like a complicated, hard challenge. Those two things exist side by side in every single moment now. It's just, you're going to have a day which has 7 challenges and 4 of the most jaw-droppingly beautiful experiences of all time. Because we are exposed to the whole world now. I mean, we are a global community, truly. Everything is visible, everything is available. You can speak to someone on the other side of the globe at the push of a button. Amazing. I mean, I love it. It's very helpful for me to be able to communicate with home from very far away. I'm grateful for technology in that way. But it adds a pretty intense pressure. I see it in everybody. I hear about it from everybody. I think that the fact that that is a common thread for everyone means that more people are brainstorming ways to cope with it, which is great. But yeah, I've lost the plot a little bit of where we started on that, but just an observation.
That's okay. I mean, essentially, I was asking what you've observed, because I think living in America, especially because our society is so, I don't want to say controlled, but in a sense it is, but it's so isolated from the rest of the world. And even though we have media, even the media is very well, it's orchestrated in such a way as we have almost a sterilized view of the world. We don't really know how other people experience things. And I think there's a common tendency for us to see the world as being different, and people of the world as being different, or their needs being different, or and so on. So I'm just curious, you having actually been to other parts of the world and experienced other cultures, and what people's real needs are and their core values, and how they see the world. What are you experiencing as the differences and the similarities between the different cultures? Or in people, really. I mean, at the core of who people are, not really so much the cultures, but people themselves. I think you already touched on a little bit, but if there's anything else you want to add, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the willingness to look and dig and excavate is a little bit different everywhere. And I'm not going to say what it is in one place versus what it is in another place, because honestly, even though I've done a lot of traveling, I've traveled to very specific communities and had very specific experiences in those communities. So it's hard to paint a picture of a whole country or a whole state if we're talking about the United States. I will say that I think everybody wants to open up. I think everybody wants to see more clearly and wants to understand on a deeper level. But the veil is different in different places. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's since you referenced the United States and the carefully curated media, I'll use that as an example. The veil is pretty thick here. It's not that that's done tremendously differently elsewhere in the world. You know, media is pretty carefully curated everywhere. But the communities that are doing the digging, I guess is one way of putting it, they're in different numbers everywhere. And usually the bigger a community gets, the thinner the veil gets. So I feel like everybody's really genuinely trying to open up. I see a lot of seekers out there, and some are in total denial about what is actually important to them, or the fact of being stuck in a dead end something. But I think the longing is there, the little seed of something that's swimming around inside of them and saying, hey, there's more to this than what we're currently doing. There's more to this than the very limited framework through which we're currently seeing. Where might that be? What might that be? And who could speak the same language that I that I'm starting to speak in. It's I think that's the sum total of my experience, really, that the veil is different everywhere. And each community is sort of trying to pull it down one layer at a time.
So, so having gone to all these places, and your students and the people who attend your concerts and so on, and just in general your life experience, are you do you think that we've really crossed over to heading toward a much better, brighter, more peaceful world, or do you think that there's still a chance that we could go back into a more darker past? What's your observation and opinion on that?
Mm-hmm. This is such a hard one to address because, of course, my hope for the world is this utopian thing. My prayer, my in every minute prayer. In 2006, when I was still working as an actress, I was invited to go to a theater festival in Germany in honor of the World Cup. And it was so cool. There was a little group of, I think, 5 of us from the United States, very specifically from Los Angeles, who went, and we were repping the US. And then there was South Africa and Ecuador and the Netherlands and France and Italy and Argentina and Mexico, and I'm forgetting places for sure. But basically, they set up this little horseshoe shape of tents, and each tent was a different country. Each tent was the group from any given country. And you could literally go around the whole world as you walked around that horseshoe, hearing all the different languages, learning about all the different cultures, having this very rich experience of real learning and real eye-opening awesomeness. And everybody was there to share something theatrical. Some it was dance and poetry and a little bit of theater thrown in, and some it was, for us, we had brought a play, which was an interesting experience because it was a lot of words and they were all in English, and not everybody who came spoke English. English was the official language of the festival, but we had our work cut out for us to really express what we were trying to say in a language that not everybody understood. We threw ourselves into it, and I don't know if we really succeeded, but I always hope that we did. But each country offered something beautifully creative, unique, exquisite to watch or to listen to. And we stayed up really late into the night. Nobody got very much sleep. There was drumming at all hours, and everybody sat down at group community tables, and you were sitting with a new collection of United Nations at any given meal. It was amazing. And I sat there every so often. I'd lean back from the experience and look around and think, the world really is this small. And if we were all spending more time getting to know each other's languages and cultures and watching each other's art and caring about each other's business, and just if we were invested in each other's countries, there would be such a profound level of understanding and kindness and a real possibility for peace. Now, I don't know that every country in the world would have showed up at that little utopian festival had they all been invited. I don't know that every country in the world is ready to express itself and to be seen fully. And I know that there are traditions that believe that everything else that's being done in the world is wrong and what they're doing is right. That's hard for me. I don't imagine that what I'm doing is right and what everybody else is doing is wrong. So I kind of hope that we're all going to approach things the same way, saying, all right, I have a way of living life. I have a technology that works for me. I have things that move me creatively. I have this set of experiences and this set of information that I can apply in this way. And I have this service to do in the world. That's what's important to me. But just because that's my picture doesn't mean your picture isn't equally valuable or important. I think if, as countries, we were approaching each other in that way, it'd be another story. This is all a big tangent to say, I had a dream of utopia. In 2006, I was standing in the center of that little horseshoe of tents and going, we can do this. And then I got grounded. And I looked around and I realized that the polarities of life, the light and the dark, and the heavy and the easy, and the grief and the joy, one doesn't exist without the other. And I do believe we are moving towards a time of more peace. I do believe we are moving towards a time of more understanding of each other. That's the step that will come before the peace really comes, because the dialogue is what will bring about understanding and the willingness to have the dialogue. There are all these things that have to happen before the more peace comes into the picture. But I think that there's a tipping point. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have. Malcolm Gladwell, that one?
Huh?
Malcolm Gladwell you're talking
Malcolm
about?
Gladwell, thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
There's a moment at which it's inevitable, because so many people are focusing on it. So many people are working towards it. So many people are invested in it. So many people are actively doing things that are contributing to more dialogue, more understanding, more possibilities for peace. I think there will always be people who are a little corrupted, shall we say, by power. There will always be people who are a little corrupted by money. There will always be situations where someone is taking advantage, because money and power are corruptible influences, and not everyone is grounded enough to be able to handle the money and the power and stay steady and still be of service. That again is my utopian vision. Let us all be prosperous and let everything be peaceful and hooray. But I'll be realistic and say, I think that the polarities will always be there. However, we're inching closer to a tipping point. The moment at which more people are paying close attention to what is meaningful to them and how they can use that to serve the planet. And that's what brings a lot of light and a lot of life and a lot of upliftment to the Earth's rotations. Oh, the Earth. There's also the very important fact of more consciousness when it comes to how we treat our planet. And I think we're inching closer to good things in that way as well. I think there are a lot of really important filmmakers out there who are telling stories that need to be told and shining light in places where light needs to be shined. And I'm grateful for them. And I think they'll be a big part of the change.
So I noticed you just released a new album, right?
Yes, I did. Oh my goodness. I honestly cannot believe that there are 4 albums out there in the world with my name on them. Like, when I go on tour, I have my road manager, Ricky, this hilarious, wonderful creature. She's been around for the unfolding of all of this, and we sometimes get giddy together about the littler details of what's unfolding in both of our lives. And so we'll be standing in the lobby or just in the outside space before I go in to do a yoga class or a concert. She runs all of the merchandise. She brings along the CDs and handles that whole piece of the puzzle. So we'll be standing outside and we'll look at the merch table and she'll say, Jai, you have a CD. I'll say, I know I have 2 CDs. She'll say, you have 3. Oh my God, I have 4. I'm an excited little kid about this stuff. I don't think I'll ever stop being excited about it. It's amazing to me that anything I have created is out there in the world and that it's doing things that I never could have imagined. So yes, that's my way of saying, yes, I do have a new album.
So tell us about the album a little bit more. What's your favorite piece on that, if you have one?
Ask me to pick a favorite. Oh my God, that's like asking me to choose between children. Ethan, honestly.
I have to ask the hard questions.
Of course, the very, very hard questions. This is the hardest so far. I favorite. Oh, do I have to? Okay, from a purely analytical perspective, which is not really what you use when you're choosing a favorite, but it's what I'm going to use. There's a 31-minute piece on there called Dhana Dhana. Well, it has an English name, which I have promptly forgotten. The Miracle of Surrender, Dhana Dhana. And it's named the Miracle of Surrender because the meditation that it's paired with in this album is one for removing fear of the future. And that's a meditation that completely rocked my world over the course of the past couple years, because honestly, we get so stuck in the behaviors of the past that are informing our future projections that we don't actually enjoy the present moment, live in the present moment, and stop worrying about later for long enough to just do what's required in the here and now, which gets us to later anyway. So that, because it's the sound current of the meditation that has really done some amazing things for me, and because building a 31-minute piece is a mammoth effort, and so hats off to my producer, Christian. I'd have to say that that's probably my current favorite.
So was there a specific motivation behind this particular album, or why did you put this one out?
Good question. Okay, so Spirit Voyage, the record label that I'm with, they have this series of albums called Meditations for Transformation. And what they do is oftentimes they'll take tracks that are released on other albums and that have become much loved by people out in the world, and they'll extend it so that where maybe it was 7 minutes on the original album, it's now 11, 15, 22, 31, some long number for yoga teachers and for practitioners to really be able to sink into a meditation without interruption. That's kind of an amazing thing to have, because like I've done 11-minute meditations in the past that have used a 7-minute piece of music. And so I always know when the 7-minute mark has come because the piece of music has to start over. And so I kind of love that they've geared themselves towards having this series to offer to people for the practice, really for the practice. And what they decided to do is when they extended a piece, they would pair it with a meditation that used that sound current and write about that meditation in the album artwork, so that readily there's like this little meditation kit that's on offer with a particular theme and with so far each album has been by one single artist rather than a collection of different artists offering different music on the same theme. And so maybe it's their favorite artist sharing meditations and music that are on a specific theme, and it's really supportive to them. So what I decided to do is after each full-length album, sort of create a B-side that is the meditation album that has a similar theme to the original, and maybe even uses some of the same pieces but reformats them, and then also has some new pieces on it as well. So I Am Mine was my first album, and The Expansive Spirit was my first meditation CD, and it's sort of a B-side to I Am Mine. Of Heaven and Earth was my third album, second full length, I guess we call it. And Miracles Abound is sort of the B-side to that. And what that means is on Of Heaven and Earth, we really dug into the Guru Ram Das vibration, this heart center. And so we have the chakra system, right? We have the lower triangle and we have the upper triangle, and then the heart center, which sits in the middle of everything and holds it all together. And it's very much spiritual beings having a human experience. And the thing that joins us, the heavens to the earth, is the heart. The heart center is the chakra of this particular teacher from the Sikh faith, Guru Ram Das. It was just unconditional love, miracles, healing, all of that really deeply compassionate and serviceful vibration that is the type of thing that comes from the heart. So in creating the B-side to Of Heaven and Earth, I knew it was going to be Guru Ram Das centric. I knew it was going to be on the theme of miracles. And there was sort of a goal of reminding people that the miracles are in everything. It's just up to us to open our eyes to them, or to be a part of the creation of the miracle. So we chose meditations based on that particular journey. Of course, we chose the music pieces first, and then I went in search of the right meditations for all of them. And yeah, it's a really sweet thing to be able to offer. I'm thrilled that Spirit Voyage does this as one of their projects.
So are all of your musical works primarily devoted to inner development and consciousness, or is any of it just purely for the pleasure of music?
Well, I'd like to say the former, but I think I'm headed into a chapter of life where in some cases it's just going to be digging really deep into music and then finding space for the beautiful mantra or the lyrics that are encouraging conscious expansion, but focusing entirely on the music. It's been the other way around thus far, because I didn't think I would be writing any lyrics in my entire lifetime. Honestly, I thought all the lyrics were written for me, because I came from this tradition where it's infinite. These writings, there's so much. And so we had that already, and I had started writing pieces of music that sort of merged with the pieces of sound current that were resonant to me. But it was always, the seed was always the sound current, and then we built the music around it. I don't know what this is, a piece of pottery. But at the heart and soul of everything was always that sound current that is for expansion, that is for surrender, that is for, the living of a conscious life, and the joyful living of a conscious life, I should say, because that's something that these mantras really do for us, is open us up to joy. And then when I started writing, it was really coming from a place of, well, it was an accident, I should say. I was writing in my journal without ever thinking I was writing lyrics. And I was writing from a place of reflecting on my own journey as a conscious individual, as a woman really owning who she was, who she is as a woman. From a place of making a commitment to really show up for what it seemed I'm here to do in this lifetime. So it was all consciousness themed. And then, writings from my journal got placed inside of music that we were writing, and all of a sudden that was a thing. So it's been simultaneously on purpose and accidental that everything has been focused on conscious expansion and on this type of journey. But we really have dug in quite deeply to creating music that was exciting to us. We never left anything unsaid or undone musically. Usually we're working up until the very, very, very last second of any given deadline, because we want to make sure that we've done justice to any given piece and really allowed it to become what it wanted to become musically, so that it could serve as many people as possible. because, we want music to be exciting when we listen to it. And I don't necessarily mean exciting from a snap, bang, boom perspective, but you want it to be dynamic and full and rich. And sometimes simplicity is incredibly dynamic and full and rich, but it's got to be the right merger, So thus far, we've started with those seeds and built around them something really full and rich. And I think it might happen the other way around in the not too near future. The next album that I'm working on, which we haven't begun recording yet, but it's been percolating in me for quite some time, is on the theme of the divine feminine. It's very much Shakti energy, goddess energy. And interestingly enough, a few of the pieces that will most likely go on that album were co-written by some of the men in my life. My father wrote a gorgeous piece that he himself has recently recorded, but I'm totally going to steal it from him. And it's beautiful beyond words. I'm really looking forward to digging into that. And then my longtime touring companion, Trip Dudley, wrote an amazing piece of music that together we paired with a mantra that I thought would go just right. And it's really expansive. So I kind of love that these Shiva vibrations, these strong masculine vibrations will be a part of this beautiful Shakti goddess project, because really everything in balance, women are strong women because of that Shakti, that Shiva energy, and men are extraordinary men if they're in touch with that Shakti essence of themselves, all in balance.
So expanding on that a little bit, are there any other plans for your future as far as your music or any other work that you really envision yourself doing?
I think I have books to write. I wasn't just pulling something out of thin air when I said maybe in 15 years I'll be writing some books. I think I have some things to write. There's some stories that really want to be told. And I've been really inspired by certain books that I've read in the past couple of years, past 10 years, let's say. And I find that the written word is something that can have an incredible impact on a whole life in a single moment. And I know that music can do that as well, but I've watched a person's whole belief system come crumbling down after reading a single book. And I've watched my own expansion in leaps and bounds after reading a single book. So I kind of feel like if there's the impulse, the urge, and the drive to write certain stories, then I really have a responsibility to write or tell them, because you never know who might be moved by that and then what they might go on and do out in the world, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help other people be 10 times greater than we ever were. So I hope that anything that I'll create will help serve. But books, yes. Lots of music. I see a lot of music. I hear a lot of music. I sort of feel it in my bones. And I think it's very interesting that you asked about the approach, because it's kind of cool to say out loud that this is the way I see it moving. I think there will be like an African drumming album in the not too distant future. I feel these rhythms, and I happen to have amazing percussionists in my life and world, as I've said. So I have good people to lean on for some really cool stuff. So music for sure, books probably. Who knows what else? The rest is a total mystery.
Now, is your music available pretty much anywhere nowadays, or are there specific places where people should buy them?
It is available on both iTunes and Amazon. The modality that supports us most as artists, and of course supports my record label, which in turn supports us as artists, is the record label itself. It's spiritvoyage.com. And if you were to search for any artist in the Spirit Voyage family, you'd find their whole collection. So I think my page is spiritvoyage.com/Jai-Jagdeesh. And my catalog is on there. all the albums. There are a couple of DVDs that I've done live music in people's classes for. And there are a couple of albums that I'm a part of. I'm a part of the ensemble, I guess, is what I'll say. Either I've done background vocals for someone, or my producer took a couple of my tracks and remixed them in different ways. One really gentle and deep and groovy for yoga and meditation, and one much more upbeat. And then we have a wonderful woman in the Spirit Voyage community, Ramdeshkar, who has these guided meditation albums that many, many people have been benefiting from. And so she'll take a piece of music that is very simple and gentle, and she'll speak over top of it and guide people through a process that is perhaps for letting go of fear, or for connecting more deeply to your intuition, or opening up to the angels that are all around us. And yeah, I'm a part of a couple of those different compilations. So everything is there, and everything is everywhere. Any and all support is most gratefully received.
So any final words of wisdom or thoughts or inspiration for our viewing audience?
All right. How many words have I got?
You've got as many words as you want.
Don't say that. You've seen.
I know you have a lot of them, so.
I think I'm going to turn to some words of Yogi Bhajan's and then offer up a couple of my own. He said, happiness is your birthright. And it really is. And it's a little unfortunate that through advertising and through a lot of things that have been presented to us throughout our young lives and our young adult lives, that we've been taught that happiness is something that we have to chase after. You know, they say the pursuit of happiness. But it's a choice. It's a choice in every minute. It's a choice every day, all through the year. And it's something that you deserve, as I deserve it, as everyone deserves it. And I encourage you to go in search of whatever it is, whatever practice, whatever spiritual discipline, whatever tribe, whatever community there is out there that's going to allow you to open up and drop the old stuff and sink in, dig really deep, excavate the hard, the sad, the lonely, the painful, so that you can get to a space where in every moment choosing happiness is a little easier than it ever was before. I think that you have something really important to give to the world. I've been harping on it for all this time. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. Everyone who's around you thinks that as well. And maybe they're just waiting for an opportunity to say so. Or maybe they don't know how to say so. But we all believe in you. I believe in myself. I believe in everyone around me. And I believe in the incredible potential of everyone out there. And in order for us to do the work we're here to do, we got to choose light. We got to choose happiness. Honor the darkness. Dig into the darkness and then choose the light. So be happy by choice and leap into the void as often as possible. I'll meet you there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today on Awaken Empowered TV, and good luck in all of your endeavors, and hopefully we'll have you out here before too long.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Much love, Ethan.